I'm Debra Lee Baldwin, author of Designing with Succulents, Succulent Simplified, and Succulent Container Gardens. I'm going to show you my own garden with tips and ideas you'll find useful for yours. It's a personal space with lots of trial and error and plenty of memories. Here in the dry, rocky foothills northeast of San Diego, it's a constant challenge to maintain a green, weed-free, tidy yard. But those of us who see plants as fascinating and rewarding don't just have yards, we have gardens. If you're one of us, especially if you love succulents, this video is for you. My own garden's challenges include frost that turns plants to mush, high heat that burns and desiccates them, and nutrient-poor decomposed granite and clay soil. The terrain is steep, so erosion and access are issues. But all those rocks make great terraces, compost and mulch are free for the asking, and I'm blessed to have help with heavy lifting, pruning, hauling, and digging. Best of all, during my career as a photojournalist and author, I've been privileged to interview knowledgeable plantsmen, garden designers, and creative homeowners. I've applied a lot of what I've learned to my own garden. I grow the plants I write about. My garden is both a sanctuary and my laboratory. Everything is looking lush and lovely because we recently had several inches of rainfall, which is a lot for a Southern California spring. Stealing the show this time of the year are African daisies. So you're not just going to see succulents, you're going to see a low water garden that's been developed over many years. So a lot of the plants are quite mature. Find labeled photos of plants on my website's Debra's Garden page. I have many succulent container gardens, each with its own story. I think I'll make a video just about them. For this video, I'll focus on in-ground and landscape areas where spring really shines. I have a lot of low-water ornamental shrubs that date to my pre-succulent era. If they make it, great. If they don't, they get replaced, usually with succulents. Succulents make it through the year without a lot of irrigation, but they love rain as long as their roots get good drainage. This street side area of the garden has different layers, which I love about it. The blue of the Senecio mandrilice repeats the blue of the sky, and the red contrasts. Anytime you can incorporate primary colors in your garden, you've got something wonderful. And throughout my garden, I have birdhouses. I hope will be occupied. It's always thrilling when somebody moves in. So if you're interested in my bird videos, you can find them on my YouTube channel. Now this is agave blue flame. It's a cross between agave shawii, which is native to Baja California, and agave attenuata. So I have a cluster of it here, flanking the steps, which makes a nice balance. I redid this area 8 years ago, replacing concrete pavers with stone. Some plants haven't grown much, others I've thinned out over the years. This is one of the most important areas of my garden because it's the view from my office window. The fountain attracts goldfinches and other songbirds. I often post photos and videos of this area on my Instagram feed with the hashtag, "This is why I don't get anything done." African daisies repeat the shape and color of metal flowers by artist Mark Rafter. Okay, let's go into the lower garden. Most of the plants I have in my garden are quite common. They're found in nurseries. They're not rare or unusual, but they're fun to play with from a design standpoint. Most of the hard work is done by a gardener who comes every 4 weeks. I make a list before he comes. I may be unique among his clients in that I know exactly what I want done and how I want it done. We spend a half an hour walking through the garden discussing the list. 2 areas of the garden are by Laura Eubanks of Design for Serenity. The oak trees drop a lot of leaves, which can make it challenging to keep them tidy. But here, inland from San Diego, with frost in winter and temps in the high 90s in late summer, leafy canopies are important to moderate temperatures. They make it possible to grow a wider range of succulents than otherwise. Many popular succulents like aloes come from South Africa. The climate and rainfall cycles are similar to southern and coastal California. Anything from South Africa does well in our gardens, like South African bulbs, like that ice plant, and those daisies. People who visit would love a cutting of Aloe arborescens variegata. I tell them you don't really want it. It is infested with aloe mite. I have cut out all the aloe mite. I don't see any right now. But once in the system of a plant, aloe mite is there forever. I don't want to give someone a cutting and have it infest their plants and garden. Gravel is a security thing because you can hear people coming and it makes a nice pathway. This is the only part of the garden where I can grow jade-like crassulas. They're up against a wall that radiates warmth in the winter, so it keeps it just above freezing and they're fine. And even if they get a little bit nipped, they recover. This is my new mangave area. I'm fortunate that Walter's Gardens, Hans Hansen, sends me mangaves to trial in my garden. And this is the shade garden on the north side. It's agave attenuata. Why all the ivy? Well, here's how the shade garden used to look. That chain link fence needed to disappear. I have a Dudleya here that has thrown up a bloom. Good for it. One of the common names for Crassula multicava is fairy crassula. It gets these long stems and plantlets, and it throws its offspring out where it roots away from the mother plant. That's one of the wonderful things about agaves is that they really stand out in a garden. You can look down into the garden and not see much definition because of all the foliage. But if there are agaves, they stand out like living sculptures. We've lived here for 30 years. The property is quite steep, and over the years, I've added steps and terraces. The total amount of land is half an acre. I have a lot of cactus around the perimeter. I love how sunlight plays with leaves and shines through them. I wish you could smell this wisteria. No matter what time of the year, the garden is welcoming and cool and shady once the sun passes the house. If the garden wasn't shady in the late afternoon, here inland San Diego, it would have been way too hot for me to garden during the summer. The north, south, east, west orientation of a home and its outdoor living spaces are important in lots of ways, not just for the well-being and positioning of plants, but for the people who use it too. I learned as a scout for Sunset Magazine, utilitarian objects need to be concealed because the aim is to create a sense of paradise. Maybe not quite realistic, but if you have anything plastic showing, a tool, a hose, it'll destroy that sense of Eden. You may be working like crazy in the garden to perfect it, combating weeds and gophers and bugs and pests, but there's also this sense of drama, of theater. The reason why you're working so hard is that you're aiming to have somebody come and see it, to immerse them in an Edenic experience. Well, sure, you're immersing yourself too, but people who say, I'll bet you sit out here and write as though I used a quill pen. Try sitting for a little while in your own garden, especially if you're alone, only until you see a snail or a weed or something that would look a little bit better if you just went after it with your clippers. It's a sort of living theater, but it's also a three-dimensional art form, and art is its own excuse for being. Like most gardeners, I've got all kinds of excuses. Oh, you should have seen it last month when the whatever was in bloom, or you know what, I'm going to get around to weeding that area or replanting that area or taking cuttings from that plant. In the meantime, your guests are like, looks pretty good to me. I'm a big fan of empty pots in the garden. If they're beautiful pots, why not? Not every pot has to be planted. That's lavender. It smells so good. When my son was still at home, we used to do projects, and this was one of them. This Aeonium haworthii looked so bad I was thinking about taking it out. I figured, well, that's what Aeoniums do in the summertime. Let's wait and see what happens after the winter rains. Well, this is what happened. Can you believe it? Don't assume your Aeoniums are dying in the fall. Winter rains will revive them. We can grow well over a dozen different Aeonium species and cultivars in southern and coastal California. Learn more about them in my books and on the Aeonium page of my website. This California iris is one of my favorite non-succulent flowers. I added California natives to the area under the Engelmann oak to boost the health of the tree. Hummingbirds appreciate it too. This is the arch that my son and daughter-in-law got married under. And this area was just cleaned out, and I have to decide what, if anything, I'm going to plant in here. It was all this shrub euphorbia that has reseeded throughout the garden. I planted this area for my husband because he loves ornamental grasses. Their texture makes such a nice contrast to the succulents. This area reminds me of a gardener I had for 15 years. I told him he could plant whatever he wanted in this sort of pie-shaped area. And now in spring, it does him credit. You see those round barrel cactus over there? I put ears on them and turn them into cats. I'll have to show you sometime how to make a cactus cat. It's a lot of trouble. It's cute though. That's agave blue glow. This agave blue glow variegata was a gift from Laura Eubanks. Isn't it stunning? One of the things I love about having a mature, established garden is the way things grow together. This bright chartreuse zonal geranium is popping up through the bank of Aeoniums here. The succulent sitting area is kind of a nice destination for picnics in the garden. It has an illustrious history. It has been photographed by several publications, including Better Homes and Gardens and Sunset. The idea is a semicircular area that's like a succulent wreath you can sit inside, and it's built into the bank at the base of a steep slope. Look, there's a little wren. It's not much bigger than a mouse. When I see a bird, I don't move. And hopefully this is a Bewick's wren, not a house wren, because Bewick's are getting endangered because the house wrens are crowding them out. May you be a Bewick's. These chairs make a nice focal point. I painted them a pale yellow that repeats in a lot of the plants. It stands out and yet it blends in at the same time. The areas of the garden that are straight lines were installed by the previous owners. I think straight lines are unnatural. I prefer serpentine lines, curved lines, semicircles, irregular lines, to something bone straight. And the reason is straight lines speak to human habitation. And down here in the garden, I think we want to feel like we're truly surrounded by nature, not in a place where man has imposed himself, even though there's nothing about this that didn't get imposed upon. Over the years, I found what does well in my garden, and the successes are far less than the failures. I have lots and lots of empty nursery pots to show for it, but this sedum is a wonderful success. This bank alongside a busy street used to be all ice plant, which was fine, but it got patchy over time. I filled gaps with paddle cactus, low water trees and shrubs, tough succulents, and annuals. Neighbors remark how pretty this is, little realizing how hard it is for anything to grow there because of harsh sun, winter frost, poor soil, and inefficient irrigation. Over time, the trees have really grown up and it's become more park-like. As I get older, I'm going to let the garden naturalize to return to the oak canyon it once was. I'm Debra Lee Baldwin. Thank you for coming on a tour of my spring garden. Find labeled photos of plants on my website's Debra's Garden page. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you have questions, please leave them.